So it's 4 minutes after 5, and I think it's quite enough time. People will join in as we go. So hi, I am Dimitra, and today with Stasa from Biosense, we are going to have a webinar on agROBOfood first open call on innovation experiments. As we mentioned, first of all, thank you for joining, all of you, and for your interest. As we have mentioned in the email, we will record this webinar so that we will be able to share it via various channels that we have as we go. Another point that we have made, another note that we requested from your side in our mail was to please keep your microphones muted. There are quite a few people here today, so in order for everyone to be able to hear, we are opting for the closed mics. As you will see, everyone, we have a chat which is available for all of you to send us your questions throughout the presentations. And in the last part, we will have a Q&A session where we will answer everything that you will ask us in the chat. So again, thank you for joining, and I will give the floor to Stasa.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Pasha. As you can see, I come from the Biosense Institute. We are a research and innovation institute based in Serbia, in Novi Sad. Our primary focus is actually working at the intersection of ICT and agriculture. And the way we do that is not only through cutting edge research in the field, but also through different business support services and engagement with the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the region, but also in Europe. Within agROBOfood, I'm the work package leader for open call management, and I'm also the deputy coordinator. So hopefully I will today manage to get this message across of how you can apply successfully for agROBOfood and what that can bring you, and answer any of your doubts and questions you might have in this process. So just briefly about agROBOfood as a project, the open call is just one of the aspects of a much broader project which actually aims at expanding this European network of institutions and organizations working in the field of agri-tech, or actually agri-food robotics more specifically. And what we aim to do as a project is actually to make sure that agriculture as a field that is often considered as quite traditional and slower with the uptake of modern technologies really embraces the robotic concepts and applies them in the agri-food sector. And we want to demonstrate that these concepts and these technologies can really be applied within agriculture and within the agri-food value chain. Then, as you can see, we're trying to cover the whole Europe, and actually the open call is even eligible a bit beyond Europe as we see it at the map. And we are doing this by establishing digital innovation hubs. So each of these dots is actually an institution or a region that we have identified where we are trying to spread the mission of agROBOfood and to engage new partners. And how we are planning to do that? We are working with digital innovation hubs, so a concept of one-stop shops, institutions that really provide a wide variety of services or can connect you to the institution that can provide the necessary service. And all these services together are focused on the digitization and robotization of the agri-food sector. And what we want to do, as I said, we want to demonstrate the value of using robotics in this field. And on one hand, we are doing it with our internal project experiments. We call them initial innovation experiment. There are several of them. But we also want to grow our network and we want to expand it, which is why we have the open calls for innovation experiments where we are targeting external institutions, companies, and people working in the sector who can receive financial support from the project to really show how these solutions work in the field. We are also growing the network in different other ways of collaborating, but today we will focus on the open call. As I said, we have several of these mechanisms where we are awarding funding. We have what we call innovation experiments, that is what we will talk about today. And we have two of these types of calls, one that is open now from March 1st until May 31st, and one that will be open later this year. So from end of December, as you can see, until end of March next year. So actually almost a year from now is when this open call will be closing. On the other hand, we will also have an open call for industrial challenges that will open in the summer this year. And some of the key differences between the experiments and the challenges is that in the experiments, as you will see today, we are looking for collaborations. So we are looking for consortia that are applying, whereas in challenges, it will be single applicants. Also, the innovation experiments have a much broader area of, or targeted area of application that we're looking for, whereas the challenges will have very set topics that applicants will need to address. There will also be other differences, but today we will focus primarily on this first open call, and we will take the rest as we go throughout the year. This first call for innovation experiments is open at the moment. And just some main facts before we go into details, the total budget for this open call is 2.65 million euros. And each selected innovation experiment can receive between 300,000 and 500,000 euros. So the budget is quite large. This budget needs to be split among the consortium members. So different SMEs that are coming together to offer a specific experiment. And then each of these partners can have between 50,000 and 300,000 euros. Depending on the total budgets of the selected experiments, we are looking for approximately 6 innovation experiments that we will fund. And what is important about this is that, as you can see, while the budget is quite high, it will be a very competitive call. So we are hoping that this webinar will help you in preparing really good applications. What is the timeline? As you see, we are now somewhere between the green and the blue dot in the duration of the open call. Once the open call ends on May 31st, we will start evaluation. Evaluation is done throughout June and July by independent experts. Each evaluator or each application will be evaluated by 3 different experts. And it will be quite a process, which is why we're allocating enough time for this. And then in August, we will hopefully have the information about the selected experiments, and we will enter the process of signing contracts. This also means that everyone who has applied will receive an evaluation summary report, and those who are selected will engage in the bureaucratic procedure for about a month. And then in September, the experiments will officially begin. What I mean by officially begin, that does not mean that an experiment in the field will necessarily begin at the moment, but the process of designing and outlining and setting the milestones will start. And then throughout, as you can see, the full end of 2020, the full 2021, and all the way until February 22, those experiments will be implemented. So it's quite a long time for the experiments to be implemented, and I will later on address also a bit about the phases for each experiment. Who is eligible for the call? One of the things I've said already is that we're looking for consortia, so 2 to 5 partners, where at least one is an end user, and at least one is a technology provider. What we mean by this is that we want to see collaborations between those who develop new robotic technologies and those who are aimed at using it. Too often we see that technology is just developed for the sake of technology without an actual need for it, or we hear that there is a need for certain technologies, but there aren't providers. So here we want to see these collaborations, and then the solution in this case needs to be based on robotic technology. The problem that we are addressing, as the name of the project and the aim, as I've described it, says already, is the agri-food sector. And one of the key things you need to do, if you think back at the map of Europe that I've showed earlier, you need to have a contact with the regional digital innovation hub. This we are doing in order to be able to grow the network, to understand the innovations coming from the network, and also to be able to support you in developing your proposal. What kind of ideas are we looking for? We're actually looking for new innovative ideas, but they cannot only be technically sound, they need to also have a business aspect to them. So after you've identified an area of interest where you would like to develop your proposal and manage to address the topic that I've outlined, you need to work on two key things. One of them is the technical excellence, but the other one is a viable business model. And in this case, we want to see solutions that can have a true market impact. So this is not a research-oriented project, rather a market-oriented project that you should be developing. As agriculture is one of the key topics within the greater sustainability debate, we want to see how your solution can contribute to resolving global sustainability challenges. We hope to see a diverse geographical coverage, which means that, as you will see in later, the evaluation criteria outlined in the guide for applicants, if you engage a partner that is not at the moment active within the agROBOfood network as part of our core consortium, you will be awarded extra points. And finally, when choosing the partners, we want to see that they are competent, and we want to see that they really complement each other. So hopefully, you will manage to find partners who, together with you, will manage to address all these aspects. A step-by-step look at the process. It can seem quite complicated, but it's not, and we're here at your disposal for any questions. Briefly, you need to register at the agROBOfood portal. Dimitra will show you the portal later on as we go. And there you will find a list of different documents that you will need to read. Once you move from there, you will see that the partners you need to find are not just partners that are necessarily people you've worked with before. One of our eligibility criteria is that the partners need to form consortia as either cross-border and or cross-sectoral. So that means that if you're based in Germany, and you work with a partner in the Netherlands, this is already good enough. But if you have a partner that is also from Germany like you are, then you need to work on finding a cross-sectoral component. And by this, we want to see, for example, SMEs developing robotic technologies that are currently being applied in logistics or smart manufacturing, but where these solutions can be transferred or potentially modified to be used in agriculture. This could already be a cross-sectoral component. Then, once you have all the partners on board and you know what you're working on, you need to start defining your idea. And you need to be careful about it in order to really have a winning proposal, as the idea is what will be the core of it. And then finally, you need to submit all the necessary documents before the deadline. And then hopefully you will be selected as one of the winning consortia. What are these important documents that I've been mentioning? There are several of them. There is a call fiche, which is a short version of everything you need to know about the call, but then there is the agROBOfood guide for applicants. This is our key source of information. This is where everything is outlined, and this is what will be the binding document for anything related to procedures or details that you might be curious about. There is a proposal template, and I will go through the template with you at this webinar so that you can get a better grasp of what is it that you need to write. And then there are some documents which are legal or formal bureaucratic documents that we need to have in order to establish that you really hold an SME status, that you as a consortium are in agreement of how things will work, that there is no conflict of interest, and finally to know how to pay the installments to those who get selected. I've talked a lot about what you need to do in order to get selected, but there is a bit also about what happens to those approximately 6 experiments that we choose. There is a process, as I've already mentioned, of different phases. And what happens is that in each phase, you work on a specific aspect of this experiment that you're developing. So from September until late November this year, the first phase that will be happening is the design phase. And in this phase, you're actually working on the holistic plan for your experiment, on the milestones, on the potential challenges, on the ways of mitigating it, on specific actions that need to be done in order to be able to enter the technology development or testing part that will come later. And this lasts for about 3 months. Then in the develop phase, which starts in December and ends in late August, is actually when the core part of the work happens. This is where you are building your or improving your currently existing robotic solution, where you're trying to see how it works in the field, where you are working with your partners to really refine this and to make it work, and where you are receiving feedback from the end user, hopefully, where you are testing this. Once you have all that, you're working on your business strategy, which is where the market phase comes in. And that means that you're looking at your potential customers, at the marketing models, at ways of generating revenue. And this phase then lasts for about 6 months. After the completion of each phase, you submit a deliverable, which is again reviewed by independent experts. And once that deliverable is approved, a certain amount of money, as indicated on the chart, is released. This means that there is no pre-released funding. You need to have enough financial means to be able to conduct each of these phases before submitting the deliverable, having it reviewed, and then having the installment paid to you. And as you can see, it goes 30, 40, and 30 for each of the designated phases. I think that is some of the key information, and I wouldn't go into details about anything other in the process before we go to the website that Dimitra will show you, and then go into the proposal template that I would like to show you.
Okay, so I think that you can now see my screen. As Tasa mentioned, we are here on agROBOfood website. There is a dedicated section that we have in open calls. Here you can find all the information that you need. There is a short page that we provide everything from the eligibility criteria, but most importantly, we have all the open call documentation. So this is your guide. That is what you need to download today and read carefully. In order for you to apply for agROBOfood. We have the funding schema as well as the timeline here. Don't forget that we have a lot of our questions in our FAQ section, so you can find a lot of things there. And don't hesitate at any moment to contact us through info@agROBOfood.eu. We will be able to help you answer any kind of questions that you have. Also, we have the most important contact info in our open calls page, where we show who are our cluster leaders. And you can see here that all European countries fall under specific regions, so you can contact directly the people that are responsible for your area and ask them for their help. Finally, here you can see the applicants button. It's the process that you will have to follow as soon as you're ready to make your submission. I think that Sasha will go through the proposal template, but I will take a few minutes to tell you that there is a fiche and a guide for applicant. It's a very important document, and you can find a lot of information there. So please be thorough and look at every part. There's a consortium declaration that you will need, and the declaration of owner, and the SME declaration, and the bank account information. Before I give the floor back to Stasa, let me just say that we are noting your questions and we will come back to them in a few minutes when we are done with the presentations. So thank you.
So I'm back again, and I would like to go through what you will all be filling in order to apply for the open call. But before I go through this document, and since Dimitra has now showed you everything that you need to find on the website, I want to make an important remark, and that is that we have received new information where not only SMEs, as defined by the European Commission criteria, will be eligible, but that also SMEs that are slightly larger than what is defined will have the possibility to apply. We will update the guide for applicants where specific information on the turnover and workforce numbers will be defined, so that you know who is eligible, and that means that on the list of documents you will soon see many where it will be written new or updated version. So if you haven't, if you're not in a rush, I would advise waiting until next week one day before downloading them, as that is when we will have the newest version. So having said that, one of the things that will not change, hopefully, is this proposal template for innovation experiments. And as you will see, this is a document of currently around 10 pages, where there is some general information, a proposal description part, the business impact. As I have said, we're looking heavily at the business side, but also a technology side, together with some of these other aspects, which is the ethics and sustainability and multi-actors involvement, and finally a section for the budget. I will now go through each of them so that you know more or less what is expected from you. In the first part, that is quite self-explanatory, you will have to give your proposal a name and an acronym, and then you will write a short summary as it would look on the website. Then we're looking for a coordinator, and we have been receiving questions on whether we have preferences on the profile of the coordinator, whether it should be an end user or a technology provider or something else. We do not have preferences in that field, but we do strongly advise that the coordinator is an SME, an organization that can truly handle the administrative and the coordinating role that they will be taking upon themselves. The coordinator is also the partner that will be receiving the funding that will then be distributed to the other members of the consortium. So in this sense, the coordinator should bear in mind that this takes up some of the work and responsibility. Then there is a small section on the cooperation with the agROBOfood consortium, where we're looking for information about this contact that you have established, as Dimitra showed you. And each country has a designated point of contact. You need to write the name of the person or the contact details. And you need to tell us what services you would like to use or see within the duration of the agROBOfood project. I will go back to this in the proposal template, but just briefly, we want to also provide certain services that you do not need to calculate in your budget. These are services that the agROBOfood consortium members already have as their competences, and we would like to expand them and to see how we can work together and collaborate in order to truly create a pan-European network in the field. So then you continue with certain information on each of the partners. Of course, you fill in as many as there are partners. So if you are 3, then you only fill in the sections until here, and you skip 4 and 5. If you are more, you fill in all of them. Then we move to the proposal description as such. And please bear in mind that there is a limit on the page number, as it is said here. So after removing the explanatory text, but including the tables on cost justification and funding, there should not be more than 20 pages. So this is one of the key criteria that can lead to being excluded immediately in the screening phase. Make sure that you're following the type designated, the font size, the spacing, and so on. Then there are some general things. You need to describe the background of the innovation experiment. And as it says here, the question to solve or the proposed solution. So my advice is to look at this proposal template as a combination between writing a proposal for an EU funding project, but also as a pitch of your business idea. So you need to have a problem that you're identifying, which is hopefully why you're working with the end user and the technology provider together. You know that there is need in the field that you are addressing. So give us this general description, give us the background of why this innovation experiment is important. Then there are the objectives. These need to be very specific and something that you can achieve with your experiment. There needs to be a work plan and some of the key activities. So even though you will be refining this in the design phase that I've mentioned, we do want to see that already now you're planning ahead and you have an idea of how your experiment will look like. Then we want to see something concrete. We want specific things. We want to know what results to expect from your project. What are some of the deliverables that you will be able to provide us with? And make sure that you link the results and the objectives and the activities so that there is coherence in the flow. So what is it that you're aiming to do and what will that result in? Finally, there is a bit on the consortium composition. So as I've said, we want to see that the project is implemented by competent partners. Here it says that you need to write a bit about the main competencies and experience about the partners, but also you need to show us where is this cross-border and or cross-sector character of the consortium that I've been mentioning. This is the general part. Whether you want to start with it or you want to come back to it once you've outlined your business and technology solutions, that is up to you. It's important that in the end you have all the sections ready. Then we have two sides to the business impact part. One is the business challenge and one is the business model. And here it will tell you that you need to describe what is the business potential of your ideas. As I said, we want to see ideas that are ready later to go to the market. You need to show how you will reach a large number of end users. So you need to show us that you're thinking beyond the research part. And then when it comes to the business model, we have some propositions on how to generate a business model, for example, using the canvas, and we're giving you some suggested links to do this. Since the space is limited throughout the proposal and you only have 20 pages as the maximum, please make sure that you first read all the sections and you're well aware of what is expected where. So if you see that some things can be combined or can be better written later rather than earlier or the other way around, use your space wisely and use your answers wisely so that you can fit everything into the 20 pages and avoid being repetitive. Then you move to the technology part. And I think what's important to mention here is that we are looking for innovative solutions. And by that, we mean either completely new technologies, we mean a recomposition of existing technologies, or something innovative in the process of improving something that's existing. And we are giving you some guidelines here on things that you can include in this description, such as interoperability, replicability, reuse, and innovativeness. Then you also need to give us a graphical overview of the application's architecture. So the main components of your solution or the reuse of existing components, interoperability points, and so on. And then here you have the section that says technology services. Here, what we mean is, are there some things that you at the moment do not have as a competence within your consortium, but things that you could use the support of the current agROBOfood partners from? For example, you're unsure about market entry strategies. You see some potential, you've done some research, you've tried acquainting yourself, but you would need later on, as we enter the market stage, a type of specific support from the agROBOfood partner. You can write that, and then once we come to the phase of really working with the selected experiments, we will see how best to match the types of services that partners can offer and the availability and the time with what each experiment needs. This is more up to you to think in the future, what is it that you don't cover, but you think that the agROBOfood competence centers can provide you with. Just to emphasize once again, this is not something you need to include in your budget. You will not need to have funding for this. this is something that on the internal side of agROBOfood partners will provide without any funding. And then there are the other aspects, and there is the sustainability, as I've mentioned, that we want to see how this fits into the broader picture of the sustainability challenge, the multi-actor involvement. So what are the different actors in the agri-food supply chain that you're involved in the use case? Here there are some ideas for end users generally, like processing and consumption. There is the section on ethics, and this follows the general European Commission guidelines on ethics. You can find guidebooks on the website of the European Commission regarding the rules and principles that you need to follow. Then finally, we come to the section of the budget, and we have two slides that are important. One is the deliverables list, and in order to make this part easier for you and to make it more understandable, we have already defined approximately what these deliverables will be. So upon the completion of the first phase, the deliverable will be a form of a report or several reports that summarize your plan for implementing the experiment. So pretty much what I've said earlier that you will be doing across these 3 months is that you will be outlining the full project, the mini project that you will do. And then you have the delivery date will be end of November. And then you here only write the overall cost. As you can see, it cannot exceed 30% of the overall budget. So you can move, the easiest with this is to do it once you have your total budget. You just come back to this and you split the funding for each phase. Then the same goes for develop, and then the same goes for market. This is just also for you to have in mind that once you have your project starting, this is how the process will go with writing deliverables. But then here is some of the budget costs. It's quite a simple budget. You don't need to spend too much time on it, but you do need to have a sound budget and you need to think about everything in advance. The main points that we are looking at or cost items that we're looking at are personnel costs, and that is people that will be working on the project, the travel costs, so everything that goes into the execution of the experiment, equipment costs. Be careful with this, because what is meant by this is only the depreciation cost of the equipment, and the depreciation should be done according to your laws in your country, as well as the European laws that you are following. Other goods and services, and then we have subcontracting. We've had several questions on subcontracting. We do not define a limit, but as the proposal will be reviewed by independent experts, they will be looking at the value for money of subcontracting, and there are some of the key things that you can also find on our FAQ page that by guidelines of the European Commission cannot be subcontracted, such as, for example, the coordination of the experiment itself, as this is something that the core partners should do. Then there are indirect costs, which should only be up to 25% of the direct cost. And then you end up summarizing. Also, what we're looking for is that there is the cost of each partner, so the consortium leader, and then each of the partners involved. And we have a short section here called justification. And by this, we mean mostly a brief summary of what has led you to conclude that these will be the costs that you're writing. So for example, if you're calculating personnel, at the time when you're submitting the budget, we do not need to know how exactly you're going to pay each person and who you are going to hire. But if you do get selected, you will need to follow all the regulations regarding the regular implementation of any bureaucratic, administrative, financial documentation for personnel according to the same standards as any European project. So here you just need to write what is your approximate estimation and how you have concluded that that's it. This is the proposal. These are the fields. And I think that was some of the key stuff that I wanted to guide you through. Before moving to the Q&A section, I would just like to tell you that the open call is not the only way of engaging with the agROBOfood project. As I said, one of our focuses is to expand the network, and we would really like to see different collaborations. So if you are a digital innovation hub or a competence center that would like to get in touch, you can contact us via the website or our emails, and we would like to see how we can truly work on building this. And something about the partners that you can count on later on during implementation. The coordinator of the project is Wageningen University, as one of the leading world institutions in this field. And then we are trying to have quite a good coverage of different European countries. So Biosense Institute that I represent covers Central Eastern Europe. EuroCut covers the Iberian region. Danish Technological Institute covers the Nordics. The university in Athens covers the Eastern Mediterranean. We have CEA in France and Italy. And we have Fraunhofer in Germany, Dimitra from Draxis in Greece. So we are hoping that with all our joint expertise, we will be able to serve the implementation of the projects and be able to answer all your different questions. Once again, I've already introduced myself, but feel free to reach out to me in case anything is unclear even after today's Q&A session. And here are some of the links where you can follow us, such as Facebook page, LinkedIn page, Twitter, and our emails. And I think now is the time for our Q&A session. Dimitra and I will now try and answer all the questions that you have been writing.
Yes, we have gathered quite some questions, so feel free to keep on posting in our chat, and we will answer them as we go. So one of the first questions that we have received is if there is a percentage that SME have to invest themselves in the project. For instance, 50%. So if the SME is awarded 300K, do they also have to invest the same amount or more?
So no. That is the nice thing about European funding, even though it sounds like a lot of work to write one of these proposals. This is equity-free funding, and that means that we are not looking for anything in return. We're not looking for any doubling the budget or working together with us in terms of the funding. What you do need to think about, as I've said earlier, is that the funding, if you are awarded the funding from this project, will not be released before you start working, but only after you have successfully realized each of the phases, and that has been approved. So you need to have some of your own financial means to support the work before receiving the installment and then moving forward. This is something to have in mind.
Perfect. So another question that we have received is there a minimum period each entity has to have been in activity? I think this mostly goes for SMEs that are new or for startups.
Can you repeat the question?
Is there a minimum period each entity has to have been in activity?
No, not in that sense. You need to have the VAT number, so you need to be a registered entity according to all the components that have been outlined in the guide for applicants. However, one of the things that, as I've said, will be taken into account in evaluation is the competence of the partners executing. So if you're a newly registered startup, you should have some form of showing for what is it that you've done before, or how is it that you're competent to do this now. And in that sense, potentially people or companies with longer prior experience might get more points depending on how they argue for this.
Okay, so next question. How do you define competent? What track record is needed to be eligible, especially for startups?
We do not have any specific guideline with this. I would say since there will be 3 different evaluators looking at each proposal, they will have very different competencies themselves. One will be an expert in business, one will be an expert in robotics, and one will be an expert in the agri-food field. So each of them will also see at previous competence and track record differently. And in that sense, you should think of how you can elaborate what each of your SMEs or startups brings to the consortium. And I can see that potentially newly founded startups can struggle with showing a track record, but you can work on building on your academic background or maybe some other smaller project where you have received funding, national funding if you have received some competition where you have had a great success. All this can feed into showing the competence of your consortium.
So another question that we have received is if Turkey is able to attend the call. I think that Turkey is eligible
Yes.
based on the guidelines.
Turkey is eligible, yes.
Yeah, okay. And another question is, will it be a platform where we can see the project ideas or partner search?
So at the moment, we do not have this capacity. We have received this request from several different actors. And since, as I've said, we will hopefully have, or we will have another open call, we will try and do that for the next one. What you can do at this point is that you can contact your regional contact person. And then we among ourselves are trying our best and doing our best to connect people who have requested a type of matchmaking service from us. At the moment, we are only doing it based on the requests that we get. We are not reaching out and supporting finding the partners, as we do not have this capacity. But the more requests we have, also we will have a greater pool of people that we can potentially connect. So don't hesitate to reach out to the name and the email person that you have on the website.
Perfect. So another question that we have received is the project implementation timeline flexible? For example, could the project start in November instead of September, or could the project last slightly longer than 18 months?
So we are fixed with the timeline at the moment, depending on different circumstances. Changes can be asked for. Those are then granted upon a request depending on the assessment. And we cannot promise anything at this stage. Each will be evaluated separately, and unpredicted situations such as the one that we are in now arise, and we are aware of that. But we need to stick to the timeline due to the schedule of the project as a whole. If this open call one, in terms of its timeline, does not suit you, as I've said, there will also be another one later this year, which will also then start later. So if that timeline would work better for you, you can also consider applying for that one.
Okay, thank you, Stasa. So another question we have received is, does robotic application means only autonomous machine or also machines with some autonomous automatic parts but human-driven, like spraying or agricultural machines?
Yes, we have quite a diverse definition, or the definition of what is considered robotics is quite wide. Even drones are applicable. You can find a more specific answer in the FAQ section where we have a designated answer on what we see as a robotic technology that would be applicable for this call.
Perfect. So another question is if the DIH is required to be paid inside the budget. So I'm guessing that they are referring to the DIHs, but as we have mentioned a lot of times, the DIHs have the supporting role, so they will help you throughout the implementation, but they are not part of the consortium. The consortium is consisted of the technology provider and a technology receiver and the a user, let's say. So the DIH is not required to be paid inside the budget. It's just mentoring and to provide you with the help and expertise that you need. Another question that we have received is, can a project have an end user partner in the same country as a technology provider, as well as an end user partner in a different EEA country, so that demonstration experiments are performed both in the country of the technology provider and in the second European country, or do all demonstration experiments have to be carried in a country different from the country of the technology provider? I think I can also answer that,
Yes.
Sasha.
This is a
So
long
it's
question.
as long as there is a technology provider and the user, there is no problem. So you have to decide the budget and how you allocate, and if you can afford to have two end users. It's always good to have the another partner from another country. There are specific countries that get awarded of more points. You can find them in the FAQ section. So those countries are countries that are not yet a part of agROBOfood, so that's why you get awarded some extra points. So I think there is no restrictions as far as that is concerned. As long as you want, you can use both end users.
Yes, I can just add that by this, you are already, if you do this with one end user in the same country and one in a different country, you're already ticking off the eligibility criteria of cross-border, which is good. Of course, as long as you're comfortable with the selection, we are fine with it.
So the next question has to do with subcontracting, which I think that you have already mentioned when you went through our template. So is there a maximum percentage for subcontracting? As Tasa mentioned, there is no maximum percentage, but actions such as coordination cannot be subcontracted, and this is based on the EU rules. So you have to be careful on what you put under subcontracting. Is that correct?
Yes, that is completely correct. And also this aspect of value for money will be dictating how subcontracting is evaluated by the experts.
So another question is, do all entities in the consortium need to be SMEs?
So as I've said earlier, up until yesterday, it was only SMEs as by definition. Now we are expanding this to slightly bigger entities than SMEs, or still in a way SMEs, but with slightly larger numbers. I'm still working on finalizing the newest guide for applicants where this will be defined. But still, what stays is that these are for-profit entities. These are not research institutions that are part of universities or public bodies. And these are private for-profit entities.
So we have a question from a participant. My Farm, I'm guessing it's an application, can provide data exchange technology as a partner to robotics projects. How could we be identified by project submitters? I don't know. I think we can keep a note, and you can send us an email actually in info agROBOfood, and we can circulate it among all cluster leaders and maybe try to match you with people that are looking for a data exchange technology provider for
Yes.
robotics.
And when sending the email, it might even be wise to immediately check who is the person as the contact person in your region, as they will be the ones who will know most about what's happening in the designated ecosystem around you.
Perfect. The extra points that you can get for including a country that is not part of the agROBOfood consortium, is that only for partners, or can it also be sub-partners, such as, for example, demonstration site companies where we can demo test our solution?
So once again, this part is subject to evaluation done by experts. What is meant is how you cover geographically the uptake of these technologies in a way. This is what we're aiming at with this component. Primarily, we are targeting consortium members as such. I cannot now envision what kind of partnership you would build with somebody who would allow you to test it, whether they would then also be a partner with a smaller budget. So this is up to you and up to every different case for evaluators to assess.
Okay. So we have another comment and question on the timeline. Ending project in February is not optimal. Main experiments happening during spring season. Is it possible to extend it until June?
Let me move to this slide just so that they don't end in February in that sense. So if you look at the timeline, they start in September 2020, and they end in, or the first phase ends in November 2020. But then you start with the develop phase in December, which means you will have February, March, April, May, and the whole summer of 2021, all the way until August 2021 for this phase. You will still have the full autumn of September, October, November. And what ends actually in February is the phase where you're more focused on the market. So here you're reaching out to customers, you're doing promotion, you're in that sense, the project with the part that needs to be done in the field does not end without having the months of the season included. They are included in the spring and summer, which happens somewhere around here, if you think of it that way. And for those interested in the autumn harvest season, this we could potentially see how to move along and how to distribute.
Perfect. So again, we have a question if there can be more than one end user. As we previously said, this is up to the consortium members. The agROBOfood network currently includes members from England, but not from Scotland. We have been told that because of these applications, including a member from Scotland would be eligible for extra points. So I would like to check that this is in fact the case.
I would have to look at this in our overall list of countries. So for specific questions like these, please send them to us via email, because I have a detailed list of countries that we do cover and in which way. So in order not to give you a wrong or misleading answer, please send it to us in a written form by email.
Perfect. And also, we are noting the questions, and you will receive the Q&A session in written afterwards, along with the presentation that we made today to help you with your applications. Does the 20 pages limit include the cover page and table of contents?
Yes, I would say that the full document should be 20 pages.
Perfect. And can hyperlinks be used to websites or additional documentation, like, for example, for annexes and supporting documentation within those 20 pages?
You can use that. However, I would not count on evaluators checking additional resources. So if it is something that is crucial for the strength of your proposal, it is important that you have it in the text, as reading additional documents that are hyperlinked will depend on each evaluator, and you cannot, we cannot guarantee that those things will then be included in the assessment.
Okay. Another question that we have received says, if all SMEs have to have a business model vision, or only the coordinator? If we are using technical partner, but they don't have the same vision as we do, is this okay?
I would say that it is up to the consortium to agree on this, because whatever you write in the proposal as your business vision will end up coming into place once the experiment is actually implemented. So if at that point you do not have a common vision, it will be challenging to work together and to successfully deliver the necessary milestones and execute what you've promised. So in that sense, we do not enter into discussions with you as consortium members. It is up to you, but make sure that what you're writing will lead to something that will need to be implemented. So in case there is a conflict already now, it might be challenging later to work on implementing it.
Perfect. In another question that we have received is about the TRL that is expected after the development phase.
We are not defining technology readiness levels as such, neither minimum nor maximum. However, as you have seen in the section on technology part in the proposal, and also as one of the components for evaluation, we are looking for technologies that are innovative, that are new, that have the potential to enter the market. So it is up to the evaluators in the end to see which of them have the greatest potential to truly enter the market upon once the phases are finished. And that is what will be looked at, not the designated technology readiness level.
Perfect. So in the case of subcontracting, this should be clearly justified. I think this is about our template, and it asks where should the participants justify that in the proposal template, the subcontracting.
Okay. I have the section on that. So subcontracting, and then here you have the justification. That is where it is.
It should be short and concise and just describe what users.
If it is something which is very specific, you can also write a bit about it in the consortium composition. So in case it is a very specific expertise that you have identified as missing among the consortium members, here you can potentially write about how you can add that through subcontracting.
Perfect. So another question here is if one of the consortium partner is the official and unique reseller in the country of some parts needed in the project, is it possible to buy these parts from him?
So buying equipment will need to be done according to the national and European laws that apply. These are specific to each country, and these you will have to get acquainted with upon receiving the funding. So depending on the institution and the country where they're based, different laws apply.
Okay.
Can you just read the question once more so that I understand it? One potential part is included.
Yes. If one of the consortium partner is the official and unique reseller in the country of some parts needed in the project, is it possible to buy these parts from him? So if
I understand it correctly, that means that this partner would already be receiving funding from the project and then would also sell the equipment to this project. This would, if I understand it at this moment correctly, would be a conflict of interest. So make sure you also read these documents carefully and clearly. These are all the legally binding documents outlined on the website.
Okay, so how do the DIHs are allocated by the location of the coordinator? Can I pick another one? So I think this is a question of the partners and where should the DIH conduct be?
Yes, so this is what we have done with this map. As on one of my first slides, we've tried organizing logistically coherent geographical areas together. And if you already have some kind of contact with a different digital innovation hub, I guess that can work, but I would still say that for our eligibility criteria, it is essential that you contact the digital innovation hub that is designated for your country, as these will be cross-checked once all applications have been received. And this is a point that can also lead to exclusion if basic eligibility is not complied with. And so this is nothing more complex than just sending out an email to the person from the hub that is outlined on our website and saying, this is my name, this is our institution, we are applying with the project and are now officially notifying you for the purposes of eligibility check, and then we will have it in the database.
Perfect. So another question that we have received is saying that 0% plus 40% plus 30% equals 100%, and it cannot exceed wording, they cannot exceed part. Actually, the wording is confusing. Are these percentages of the maximum allowable budget or of the requested project budget? In the second case, if they are of the requested project budget, it would mean that the budget for each phase has to be exactly 30%, 40%, and 30% for the total to add 100%, while cannot exceed seems to imply that they can be lower.
So I can understand that this can be confusing. These are the maximums that will be paid out depending on your total amount of budget. So if you're applying for 100,000 in total, 30% of that, which is 33.33, will be paid upon the successful completion of phase one. Yes, in that sense, then up to 30% is potentially unnecessary. It would be enough to write 30%.
Okay. Another question that we have received: how important is the innovation aspect? If we slightly alter a field robot, is that innovative enough?
So this will be up to the experts to evaluate again. That is why we are leaving this to external people who combine different types of expertise. You can see that here it was written that what we are looking for is either, it was here, either completely new or a recomposition of existing technologies or innovative process improvement. And this, combined with the business aspects that come to it, provides a wide variety of combinations of what is considered innovation. I would still say that you should try and think in the most challenging way so that you truly offer something innovative and not something that is existing in the field. As I've said already, the business and the market side of it are also a big part.
Perfect. Can parts and equipment for the experiment be sourced from outside the EU?
This is again really dependent on the regulation of procurement and falls into a whole other category that will then be cross-checked and done with the selected experiments. In that sense, they're very different.
So another question is how long, how much does the approval take? So I think that we will refer back to the timeline that you have previously shared. And as we said, the call opened on the 1st of March. It will end in the 31st of May, and the evaluation process will last until the end of July. And in August, all selected experiments will be notified, and we will start with the contract phase.
Yes. The process of evaluation will really depend. It is you will see in the guide for applicants, it is a twofold process. First, it will be a remote evaluation where each of the three evaluators come together, discuss, address the proposals that they are reviewing. And then once we have created a shortlist, the shortlisted applications will even be invited for a face-to-face interview with the evaluators. And then once we have those final results, we will have the definitive number and selected experiments. So it can last a bit shorter, a bit longer, but this is an approximation that we can give you at the moment.
Perfect. So somebody asked for a clarification of the role of universities and of research centers. Can they be classified as tech providers or SMEs?
Can you again repeat this one?
Yes. If we can clarify the role of universities and/or research centers, can they be classified as tech providers or as SMEs?
So again, most universities are public non-profit entities, so they are not they're not SMEs. And just not to confuse the parts, technology provider or end user, they still need to be SMEs. This is a call for profit. The role of institutions or some form of non-profit, I guess that is what you're primarily aiming at with this question, because I know there are some research institutions that are for profit. But the role of the non-profits in this call is first of all not targeting such institutions. We're targeting those who are in the market, who are operating in the market. they potentially, if they have some specific expertise that you're really relying on, can be subcontracted. But again, according to everything that has previously been said about subcontracting and the value for money and the relation to the core tasks and responsibilities. But in any other case, they can be your partners in terms of know-how and collaboration, whether you have some other agreement with them. But they are not consortium members. They cannot be consortium members if they are not if they are not SMEs or slightly bigger entities as described in the guide for applicants.
Okay, thank you. And I will go back to the previous question because there was actually a mistake from my part because the question went on how much time does the approval take for each phase of the implementation for the release of the payments.
Understood. Each phase, again, the deliverable is reviewed by an independent expert. And I know I've been repeating this a lot, but we're doing this in order to truly ensure that everything is reviewed in a non-biased and independent way and not by internal agROBOfood partners. If you submit your deliverable on time, we will do our best to make this process as short as possible. So sending it to the expert for review, receiving the review and releasing the funding. It really depends both on the money transfer, where the partners are based, the time of the expert, but usually it is done within a few weeks or something, depending on when you submit your deliverable.
Okay. So is the project focused on agriculture, or we can propose a technology involved in transformation phase? I'm not sure if we understand correct this question, but the agROBOfood is focused on agriculture and robotics for the agriculture sector. But if you mean something else by that, please send us again your question with some clarifications.
Yes.
So I'm going to the next one. What can we see as soon as we register on your site? Can we share ideas and find partners or join existing consortium? I think we've answered that previously. Can a partner testing a technology be based in the USA that represents one of the largest livestock markets?
No, unfortunately, the call is only eligible to the countries as outlined in the guide. There are really many, but the USA is not one of the targeted calls. If you have some other form of collaboration with them where they're not a partner in the consortium and do not receive the funding, that is then completely up to you.
Can environment also be considered as related to agriculture and as an application sector?
This is again very dependent on which part of the environment and how it is connected. There's definitely a very strong link between environment and agriculture, and that is why also sustainability is one of the things that are included in the application. But this is quite broad for us to give you a specific answer on.
Okay. Are any project amendments or as budget allocation during the project duration possible, or the budget when the project is accepted is fixed?
So this, as I said, there is usually the possibility of certain things being reviewed and reassessed upon asking or sending a specific request. We cannot guarantee any of that at this point, and that is why it's important that you plan your budget as much as possible to the point as you will plan to use it.
Okay. So a question that we have received says that they would like to know which are the main differences expected between the Open Call 1 and the Open Call 2.
Okay. Just to clarify, this would then still be Open Call 1 and Open Call 2 for innovation experiments. and we're not referring to the challenges. The idea is that we generate feedback and we collect information and what works and what doesn't work and what is needed in this time between open call 1 and open call 2. This means that we might change some of the eligibility criteria. This means that we might be able to provide a different matchmaking service, but all of these things are still in the process of discussion and none are set in stone. Primarily the open call 1 and 2 will stay almost completely the same, with minor changes based on the feedback received in the process. What this means is that if you are not awarded funding in this first phase, you can resubmit your application potential with minor alterations for open call 2 and be awarded then if assessed so.
So another question that we have is if evaluators come from within the agROBOfood consortium, and they do not. As you, if you follow us on our website and our social media, you will be able to see that we have had a separate call where we have asked for people, for experts from different backgrounds to join us in agROBOfood independently. And Stasia mentioned it also here today a couple of times. So we have launched a separate call for our evaluators. There has been a process that was followed and they were selected to do the evaluation independently and provide us with the results and based on their expertise. I was wondering if you could clarify which funding rate applies. In other words, is it 70 or 100% of the eligible costs?
So the funding is a lump sum. That means that what you write, if you are awarded, then you get. In this sense, it is not as with the Horizon 2020 main funding, where depending on the type of institution you represent, for-profit or non-profit, this is a decrease. So in a way, in a very short form, it is the 100% of what you write in the installments as set or laid out.
So another question we have received is, can a partner purchase or rent equipment for the experiment? And are there standard rates, for example, for consultant as example, if there is a standard rate table that they can refer to the EU, or they'll be using, sorry, it's not very clear the question, or can refer to the EU one they'll be using for evaluating the financial budget?
No, so in terms of first the equipment buying or renting, again, only depreciation costs are eligible. This is again dependent on each country, so make sure you familiarize yourself with the rules and regulations that apply to you. It is a specific concept depending on the national and European laws. For personnel costs, no, as the evaluators come from different countries and different backgrounds, they will not have a unique table. It will more be dependent on your justification here. So the rates you use are in a way up to you as long as they are within the reasonable costs.
We have a question that says, what is the meaning of independent according to the European Commission recommendation 2003/361/EC? Are we necessarily considered as independent if our company belongs to another one?
So this is why there is the recommendation. It is, I would now have to really, in a written form, read through all your official documents, and I guess you're referring to different sister companies and similar entities, but this is also very dependent on national and EU rules, and this is up to you to familiarize yourself with before filling in the consortium agreement and SME declaration.
So maybe they can they can share via an email?
Yeah, if there is something
particular?
specific, feel free to share it via email, but most of these documents are linked in the guide for applicants for you to read and find which apply to you. And very often your legal documentation is in your country or in the language of your country of origin, which makes it very difficult for us to assess depending on the geographical distribution.
So another question is, if a partner goes as subcontractor in one of the DIH calls, this amount counts also for the 3,000K funding limit, or only when it is a participant receiving direct funding?
So I cannot speak on behalf of other projects. We do not have such a limit. And as I've said, for us, subcontracting is assessed based on the things I've outlined.
Okay. So one last question that we have here. It is to be expected that projects will apply the major part of the budget for technology development and integration. As such, should the consortium leader be a technology provider or an end user?
We do not have preferences on the consortium leader's background. The only thing that we advise in that sense is that the consortium leader has the capacity to undergo the administrative parts of leading this project. And then also, it does not necessarily mean that the consortium leader has the greatest budget. As you can see here, each of the partners has their own budget, and this is up to your internal agreement.
There is another question that says, as per previous question, or is this more for demonstration purpose? But maybe you can provide us with some more information.
Please.
Yeah, please, so that we will be able to answer. So another question that we have, it says, are non-profit SMEs eligible?
So no, I think also the non-profit, but then SME is a very difficult term to understand. An SME is defined, and I can potentially even open the guide for applicants briefly for everyone to see where to search for this information. As I've said, we will update the guide for applicants next week on the website, when you will have a newer version than the one I will show you now. But what is key in this document is the part on how we define an SME, and we are following European Commission standards, as I've said previously. So there is, it specifically looks at the turnover and the people you employ. Taking a second, but hopefully I will be able to share it with you. Jimmy,
Okay.
maybe in the meantime you can read if there is anyone.
Okay, I will try to go through, because there are many things that are coming at the last minute together. So I think we have answered that one. So there is one more that says, funding within the IH here at the IH2, Rima Trinity and the agROBOfood project,
Yes.
the maximum amount that an entity can get from the projects is 300K in total. This means that you can apply to several of them, but can only be funded with up to 300K.
So I have heard of this information previously, as some of the other projects have outlined that. But the latest information we got is that none of those caps apply to agROBOfood as such. So we cannot speak on behalf of other projects from this call. But in agROBOfood, we are not looking at the other funding, as long as there is no double funding, which means you cannot conduct the same activities for different funding. It really needs to be separate activities. I will go back to eligibility criteria briefly. As you will see here, there is a definition of an SME eligible for the agROBOfood open call. There is the recommendation, as cited earlier in one of the questions. It is referenced here, so you can go and read on what is considered here. There is also the SME user guide, so who is considered an SME according to the European Commission. And what is important here, why I said it is not a non-profit in that sense, is that we then have a headcount of less than 250 and an annual turnover of less or equal to 50 million. So in case what you were referring to falls under all of this and I misunderstood, feel free to send me an email or just consult the documents outlined here.
So another question that we got is what is the maximum percentage of funding per project?
The maximum amount of funding per project was outlined on the website, so it is up to 500,000 euros. That means all partners together, and then a single partner can have up to 300,000.
Okay, and we have a question that says, can a food industry be the end user? Can a food industry be the end user? I would say just broadly now, yes, but this really depends on what you're thinking and how you're thinking of this as an end user. And you can also see some of the examples that we have from the current experiments that are taking place to get a broad idea of what we're doing inside agROBOfood. So if you visit our website, you can find a section on innovation experiments and previous showcases where we demonstrate various fields that we cover. So you can get some ideas and feel free to come back to us about any further questions that you may have on that end. Projects will apply the major part of the budget for technology development and integration, or the entirety of work should be done on demonstration.
Again, here we do not have preferences. This is a bit up to how your project is organized and how you as partners allocate the budget. Once again, think of all the evaluation criteria so that it makes sense and that you argue well for the distribution of the budget.
So what is important to put under the point 5.2 and 5.1, other aspects in the proposal template?
5.2 and 5.1. Let me open it so I can see what is 5.2 and 5.1.
Yes.
Okay. So multi-actors involvement. So here comes this part of describe to what extent the different actors of the agri-food supply chain are involved in the use case, especially in processing and consumption. So this means thinking of the entire farm to fork value chain, if you look at it like that. How does your experiment affect that, and how are all of these actors involved? And then you have also how the use case will contribute to consumer empowerment and consumer acceptance. So for example, if your experiment is in the field of let's say robotic solutions for pig farms and slaughtering, you can think of the aspects that relate to then consumers and how they see this and consumer acceptance of these practices in a broader picture. As for 5.3, ethical, again, if you would look at the same example of pig slaughtering, there are different ethical issues that you would have to then elaborate and look at here.
One more question about deliverable list 6.1. How should this part be explained in the call proposal? Should they leave the table as it is and put only the name of the deliverables separately for each phase? Should they put the letter R in the table? Are there any
You do not need to change. You do not need to change anything other than insert the overall cost here.
Perfect, thank you. There is again the question about the subcontracting and if there is a limit on the amount. We have mentioned before that there is no limit to the amount, But there are some actions that cannot be subcontracted, such as the coordination of the projects according to the rules. And we will share more information with the Q&A. I think we now have only 2 minutes, so we will not take any other questions. I think that pretty much we covered every question. If you have any additional questions or queries, don't hesitate to contact us. You can send an email to info@agROBOfood.eu at any time, and we will make sure that the person responsible will receive it. Thank you all so much for joining today and for your questions and for taking the time. And Stasa, do you want to say something to?
I would also say thank you from my side. I hope that many of you will submit applications. I'm really looking forward to receiving as many as possible, and that hopefully then we will have a nice potential for further collaboration. But that also, in case you really want to reach out to agROBOfood partners, you know where to find us, and we will try to be available.
So thank you again for joining, and we are really excited, and we're looking forward to receiving your applications, and have a nice rest of the afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
To everyone.